Are you guys excited for another video of me talking about TikTokers who don't know anything about animals? I know I'm not. Before we get into today's video, I am just going to add an additional disclaimer to my regular disclaimer that I now put at the beginning of all of my videos, because I know today is going to be covering a very sensitive topic, and that is fat phobia and plus size people in the equestrian community. Because I want to preface all this by saying that nothing that I am saying in this video is an attack on plus sized people. That is not the intention of today's video. My intention of this video is to talk about the potential repercussions and damage to a horse's body that can happen when they carry a rider who is too heavy for them. We're going to be reacting to a video from a TikToker who self-admittedly is plus sized and does plus size advocacy, and I want no one to go say anything negative to her, because that is not the point of today's video. The point of today's video is to dissect what she is saying and help give her a little bit more context for the questions that she's asking. That's enough of a disclaimer. Let's go ahead with the video. Not how I wanted to start my morning. Really not how I wanted to start my morning, but apparently this is what we're doing. So today we're going to be watching a video from a TikToker named Alyssa Goldwater. This is a video about one of probably the most just like touchy topics when it comes to horses and horse welfare ever. And I knew that I was going to have to talk about it at some point, but I was kind of like hoping it was going to be further down the line once I had more like experience making videos. So we're going to watch this video together, and I haven't watched this video since October, so I remember a few things about it, but I don't remember all of it, so we're going to be kind of going over it as I watch it here.
Let's talk about weight stigma and fat phobia in horseback riding.
My name's Alyssa, and I'm an Orthodox Jewish plus-size friend in binge eating disorder recovery.
As a girl from Kentucky, I have always loved horses. I love trail riding. I used to horseback ride at camp. And while I was never this plus size necessarily my whole life, my weight did fluctuate as a kid, and no one ever gave me a hard time about my weight and getting on a horse, regardless of how fat or skinny I was.
Part of that was probably because you were a kid, so regardless of whether or not your weight fluctuated or if you were a heavier kid, you were probably still within a horse's weight limit. There are kids who are plus sized who would be about my weight, but they would still be able to ride the same horse as I can, even though they're technically overweight because they're still as heavy as I am.
But throughout my adult life in more recent years, I've encountered several situations where I would not be allowed to ride a horse because of my weight. So last summer I was looking at different ranches out in Montana and the Dakotas, and under like the horseback riding FAQ, it said weight capacity for horseback riding, either 200 or 250 pounds. It varied. Now,
That is pretty standard. So any reputable trail riding or riding facility is going to have a weight limit, either a like stated overall weight limit cap of like 100%, everybody has to fit this, or per horse. So like I worked at a riding facility where we didn't have like a set weight limit for the facility, but we had a set weight limit for every horse because, you know, the horses could carry different weights. But when it comes to trail riding facilities, most of their horses are typically around the same size, and 250 pounds is a pretty standard cap for a weight limit. Like, I don't want to say universally, I'd say in North America, that's pretty standard.
Know how they check that when you get there. I don't know if they're gonna like look at you and say, you look like you weigh more than 250 pounds, get on a scale, fatso. I don't know what they're gonna do. I think the whole situation is like a little weird, but I was not about to book an entire trip out west.
So no place that I know of is actually gonna put you on a scale. I think that would be kind of weird. But what I will say, as someone who worked in a riding facility, and when I was a working student and then an employee there, one of the things that I would have to do as new riders came in was, if a new rider showed up for the day and, we hadn't seen them before, we didn't necessarily know their weight, because some riding schools will require that you submit how much you weigh beforehand, others won't. Ours didn't, I don't think. But when a new rider would show up, I would, I would see them, I'd give them the forms to sign, I'd go talk to the coach that I was working with that night, and I'd say, okay, the person has showed up, like beginner rider or like intermediate rider, whatever the rider level was. And so then we would know, okay, these are the horses that are at that level, these are the horses available tonight. And, my coach would ask me like, will they work for this horse? Will they work for this horse? Because we knew the approximate weight of all of our horses. And once you're doing it for a while, you can get pretty good at looking at a person and going, okay, you're gonna work for this horse, you're gonna work for this horse, or you're probably towing the line with this horse, or you weigh too much for this horse, that kind of thing. I can't look at you and tell you weigh 205 pounds, but I can look at you and know the horses that I have in my barn today and go, okay, you're gonna work for this horse, you're not gonna work for this horse, that kind of thing. You get very good at that. You get pretty good at having that, that knowledge and experience.
Be denied on the spot, like the one thing I really wanted to do there. I'm not entirely sure why the weight capacity is 250 pounds. I thought most horses were like these load-bearing work animals that like help farmers pull things, at least in the olden days. I don't know like why the horses of today are so weak, or I don't know why the industry is so against fat people getting on their horses and denying them that joy.
Okay, so a few things to unpack there. The first one being load bearing, so like how much weight a horse can carry versus how much weight a horse can pull are two very, very different things. And I will say this as someone who has an actual workhorse, okay? So not all horses are workhorses in the sense that she's talking about. So when we talk about workhorses, we're talking about draft horses, horses that were bred to pull and work on farms. So that is actually very much not the majority of horse breeds. So breeds that you're gonna see working on farms doing logging, plowing, pulling heavy weights are going to be horses like Clydesdales, Belgians, Percherons, my personal favorite. If you guys know me, you know my girl is a Percheron, and I haven't done a full video on her story. I will at some point, but my horse actually was a workhorse. For about the first 8 to 9 years of her life, she worked on a Mennonite farm, plowing and logging. And so draft horses, when they're fully fit and in good shape, they can pull thousands of pounds. That does not mean they can carry thousands of pounds. And a workhorse like a Percheron or a Belgian is also going to be able to pull significantly more than a smaller horse like a riding style horse. Percherons and a lot of draft breeds can typically pull up to 2 to 3 times their own body weight when they are fully fit. My horse is about 1,800 pounds, so oh my god, now you're gonna make me do math. This is the problem. This is part of why I was like dreading having to make a video about like the 20% rule and everything, because math is not my strong suit and this involves numbers. And when I say math is not my strong suit, I mean I literally have a mathematic learning disability. So I double check everything with a calculator. So my horse, not currently because she is not fit, but if she was fully fit, she could pull about 5,400 pounds. That's about an approximation. She cannot carry 5,400 pounds on her back. So how much a horse can pull versus how much a horse can carry are two very different things. When it comes to determining how much weight a horse can carry, we typically go off of the 20% rule. So the 20% rule means that a horse, a fully healthy horse at a healthy weight, can carry approximately 20% of their overall body weight. That includes tack and the rider. So you have to subtract how much your saddle and like your saddle pads weigh from the overall weight. So especially if you're riding Western, like a lot of trail facilities are, your saddle could be 30 to 40 pounds, which means you have to subtract that from how much your rider can weigh. Because if your horse can only carry 200 pounds, but your saddle weighs 30 pounds, that means your rider can only weigh 170. That's right? 200 minus 30 is 170? Yes, it is. It is. I'm so good at math. So horses are not weaker today, okay? So like I said before, earlier in the video, you said you never had a problem growing up. Again, you were a kid, you were growing, even if you were on the heavier side as a kid, that doesn't mean that you were necessarily getting anywhere near most horses, weight limit. We also know more now. The vast majority of the equine world knows that they should be sticking within 20% of the horse's overall body weight, or some people say 30. Most of our studies say typically between 18 and 26, I believe. And a lot of people will argue with this because they say, oh, well, like I weigh 30-40% of my horse's body weight, but they're fine. Your horse might be fine now, but that doesn't mean that they won't have problems down the road. I'm not going to get into all of the nitty-gritty details of the 20% rule right now, because that is a lot and I want to continue getting through the rest of this video. But generally what we say is that the rider plus the tack should not weigh more than 20% of the horse's overall healthy body weight. So the average weight of a healthy adult horse is about 1,100 pounds. Obviously, that is going to vary depending on breed, you know, if you've got a pony or you've got a horse, but this is average we're talking. So 20% of 1,100 pounds is about 220 pounds. So a lot of trail riding places will also have horses that are a little bit bigger, which is why you get to about the 250 range, but the average horse is only going to be able to carry about 220 pounds. Okay, so that's average. Again, there are other horses that can carry more, but a lot of trail riding facilities will rely on horses that are like quarter horses, which typically aren't going to weigh much more than the average body weight. So having them carry more than 250 pounds could be extremely dangerous. There are horses who can carry more weight, like draft horses, like my horse. And there are horses that are even bigger than her, horses that are 2,000 pounds, horses that are 2,200 pounds, and they could carry a heavier rider. But a lot of the time, you're not going to find draft horses at riding facilities. But the point of all that to say, horses are not any weaker now than they were back then. In addition to the fact that you're just no longer a child, and so you are a bigger person, like, you know, I'm bigger than I was as a child, you're going to come across different obstacles when it comes to riding horses.
So the reason I'm making this video is because today at my daughter's day camp, they had pony rides. And I don't really like pony rides for like animal rights reasons, like horses walking in a circle. So I guess there ended up being some...
I mean, depends on the place, depends on the, the little group that's running the pony rides. I mean, end of the day, your pony does not really care if they're walking in a circle, like for 5 minutes at a time for like an hour. That's not the end of the world. If they're doing that day in and day out, that's another story, but that's not really the end of the world necessarily. But yeah.
Communication between the pony ride people and the camp, and some of the older girls who were a little bit taller were told that they couldn't get on the pony. My daughter was told that she was too tall, and then her friend was told by the pony guy that she was big. And my daughter said that the guy said that to another friend too. I don't know that...
I'm really sorry that your daughter's friends had to deal with that. And I'm very sorry that your daughter wasn't able to ride the pony at her party. I believe she said it was her daughter's party. And I'm very sorry that her friends had to deal with being told that they were big. No adult should be saying that to a child. However, I am glad that the person who was running the pony rides was sticking up for his horses, because even if we say, oh, it's just once, that keeps happening. So it is important that you don't let someone on to a pony or to a horse that they are going to be too big for, but that was not the approach for them to take. This is also the problem with pony rides, right? Because when I think of pony rides, because I don't, did she say how old her daughter was? I don't know. But a lot of the ponies that you see for like birthday party pony rides are like little ponies, like ponies that, I mean, because like, I can ride a lot of ponies, I can ride bigger ponies, but like little ponies I can't ride. Like I can't ride a Shetland, I'm too big for a Shetland, but that tends to be around the size for a lot of pony rides. So, I mean, yeah.
Name of the company, so I'm not going to say it here, but I had to do a lot of building up in carpool on the way home from camp, and I'm glad that I was the one that was able to like receive the kids after this event. I sort of get a weight limit with ponies, like they're smaller, they're babies, it's different, but like big horses, I don't really understand. Remember when Remy Bader had that whole issue where she went out west on a brand trip and they wouldn't let her get on the horse? Like what? TLD.
So I'm really glad that you were able to do some confidence building with the kids. I think that's very important. And yes, like I said, ponies are smaller, so not gonna be able to carry as much. But when you say big horses, again, average horse is 1,100 pounds. 20% of their body weight, 220 pounds. So it depends on like how plus size we're talking about an individual.
Unfortunately, I find horseback riding to not be a size inclusive sport and activity, and I find that very disappointing.
Okay, so I don't like that, so I don't like how she ended the video because it makes me have to end this video on a different note than I would have wanted to. Because, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I have no problem with her as a person. I think she is a very well-spoken, very intelligent woman, and I think she seems lovely. She seems like a lovely person. She's just uneducated in this particular arena, which, to be fair, most people are. Even a lot of equestrians are uneducated when it comes to this thing. But the whole thing with Remy was, I remember that was a big thing a few years ago, and I didn't like how anyone handled that situation, because I didn't like how Remy handled it, because she was like, yeah, like, they're fat shaming me because they said I'm too big for their horses. And then there was someone who worked at the facility who posted videos slandering her in an incredibly awful way. I don't even remember what that individual said about her, and even if I did, I wouldn't repeat them, because what I do remember is they were awful. But no one handled that situation well, apart from the people who just, you know, said, unfortunately, you are over the weight limit for our horses. That was not them in any way, shape, or form being fatphobic or discriminatory. That was them protecting the health and safety of their horses. Saying that you're disappointed that horseback riding is not a size, like, inclusive activity, and the whole thing about denying joy, this isn't about you. I'm sorry. This is something that I talk about a lot when it comes to everyone. I talk about this with people all the time, and I think, like, my family is, like, tired of hearing me say this. Not just when it comes to weight, but when it comes to anything, you are not entitled to ride a horse. Okay? Nobody is entitled to ride a horse. I'm a horse owner. I make the decisions day in and day out for my horse, and even I am not entitled to ride my horse. Could I, if I wanted to, could I go out and sit on my horse? Yes. But if she told me, no, I don't want to do this right now, I would listen to her, because I am not entitled to that ride if she does not want it. And we are not entitled to ride horses that we could potentially injure. And this is not just something that affects plus size people, this affects a lot of people. I mean, everybody is going to have horses that they are too big for. There are tons of cute ponies at the riding school that I used to work at that I really wanted to ride. There was one little pony in particular who I loved, who I think I was like, at the time I was like 30 pounds too heavy for her, because her weight limit was like 120, I think. And she was a, what was she? She was a Welsh quarter horse cross, and she was just the most adorable chestnut pony who just, like, she could jump the jumps. Put anything in front of her, she could jump it. And, like, she and I didn't particularly get along on the ground, but she was one of those horses where it was like, I don't want to be, like, around you on the ground, but I want to go ride, I want to go work. And I really wanted to ride her, but I was too big for her. And so, as much as it sucked, I was like, you know what, that's fine, there are other horses I can ride. There are horses that everyone is going to be too big to ride, that is just how it is, and it is not about you. When someone tells you that you're too big for a certain horse, that is not them being fatphobic, that is not them being discriminatory towards you, that is them protecting their horse, because their horse can go through so much pain and so many issues if they're carrying more weight than they should be. I did just want to talk about this because a lot of people tend to have this sort of entitled mindset when it comes to horses, and when it comes to animals in general. We have no right to them. There is no such thing as the right to ride a horse or the right to the joy of riding a horse. It's a privilege. It is a privilege to be able to ride a horse, and that's not me saying, like, oh, you're not privileged enough to ride the horse. You might not necessarily be able to ride this horse, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't ride this horse. And yeah, there are people who, you know, get to a certain point where, you know, they're 500 pounds. You're not going to be able to ride a horse anymore at that point. I'm sorry. That's just the reality. And it's not me trying to be mean to you. It's me trying to protect horses. I don't want to ramble and keep talking in circles because I'm sure I've kind of already done that. This is just the reality when it comes to horses, and an equestrian or a horse owner that tells you that unfortunately you cannot ride their horse, and, you know, you ask them why and they say, unfortunately, you're over their weight limit. That is a good horse owner, and that is a good equestrian. Now, how they approach it is a different story. If they say, oh, you're too fat, they shouldn't say that, but it is important that they advocate for their horse. So let's not get into this mindset of, oh, it's, you know, it's really disappointing that horseback riding isn't inclusive, like, isn't size inclusive. It's just the way it is. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. Do you want me to just decide, okay, you know what, you can ride my horse even if you're way too big for her and you're gonna hurt her? I'm not gonna do that. Once again, don't go attack this person. I think she's lovely. I think she's, is genuinely trying to ask questions she doesn't quite understand. So I'm trying to help educate and anyone else who's maybe confused about this kind of thing. I wish, like, Alyssa, I wish you no ill will. I think you seem like a lovely person. Quite honestly, you seem like a very lovely person that I would love to have around. It's just important that when you have a big platform like you do, that you don't start kind of spreading this idea and this dangerous and explosive idea that people are trying to be, that people are being fat phobic by protecting animals. It's just not what's happening. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, please let me know by leaving a like or a comment. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about today, feel free to leave a comment. You can follow me on TikTok at Cats Creatures or on Instagram at CatWeaver8. You can also follow my adorable dog Padfoot on Instagram at Padfoot_the poodle. And if you would like to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button because I do my very best to get a new video out every Monday. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and please think critically.